Hi, okay, I'm going to go over some more advanced mapping options using Tableau. I'm going to use earthquake data for this. Specifically, the earthquake data I'm going to use is the same earthquake data used in the LinkedIn Learning class, Tableau 10 Essential Training, Chapter 12, Making Geographic Data. So you don't have to go to that class in LinkedIn Learning to get the file. I've already posted it right here, earthquake data, in Moodle. So I would just use that. So first of all, how do we get that into Tableau? Well, if we're on this opening page in Tableau, we can choose connect to Microsoft Excel file. That's what this file is. So let me do that. Let's see, it'll be in my downloads folder. One would think. Oh, there it is. All right, if you were already using Tableau and you didn't see that connect page, like if you had something like this on your screen, you can go right here to this icon. Let's see, it's about 3 or 4 over. It says new data source. You can click that and it'll bring you basically the same page. Okay, well anyways, I've imported this USGS data, and the only other thing I did is I clicked on sheet. I had clicked this plus to make a new sheet. I actually didn't have to do that. I'll go back to sheet 1. So how do we get a map to show up? Well, we're going to want to use latitude and longitude. That's probably not a surprise. You'll notice that the measurements in this data file have been broken into dimensions up here and measures down here. Measures would be things like, median household income or obesity rates, or in this case, magnitude. You can see latitude and longitude are listed down here. They are really dimensions. We want to use them to create a map. So what I'm going to do is on latitude, I'm going to scroll over to the right when I'm hovering over it, where there's this little drop down. You can also control click or right click on it to get this contextual menu. And I'm going to go down to convert to dimension. I'll do the same thing with longitude. Convert to dimension. So by doing that, we just move them from measures up to dimensions. I'm going to select both of them now. Oops. And drag them over to our workbook. Okay, so right off the bat, that's going to make our map. It'll be interactive, but you can see it's just showing latitude and longitude. So that's not very helpful. What can we do with this? Well, first of all, if we want to show the magnitude of these earthquakes, let's take that and I'm going to drag it over here. I could just let go, but I'm going to add it to size. That's what I'm interested in controlling. And you'll see that all of our circles on our map basically just increased in size. It did add mag for magnitude, so that's helpful. But that's about it. These are not all the same size if you hover over them. So the circles in theory should be different sizes. So what's going on here? Well, if you look in this marks window, you'll see it's saying sum mag. In other words, it is reading this variable incorrectly. Specifically, we come down here, it's saying measure sum. That's not what we want. This is really an attribute. Now, this isn't super important. The more important thing to change is it thinks it's a continuous measurement rather than a discrete measurement. So we've discussed the difference before, but continuous would be like a time series. This is discrete. So if we click on discrete, you'll see now we have much more variability in the sizes. So that's a lot better. I'm going to go up to size and drag the slider up a little bit so we get more variability in the size. And now we're going to cover up some things on the map. So let me go to color, and I'm going to bring the opacity down. So that's a little better. Again, when we hover over these dots, it just gives us latitude and longitude. Most people can't connect that to an actual location, so the map is the most useful thing in terms of telling you where you are. It would be nice to have text label. So we have this place text label. I know it's text because it says ABC next to it, right? As opposed to these geospatial measurements, which have the little globe next to them. You'll notice measures all have number. Anyways, I'm going to take place. And we could drag this down to, for instance, label in the marks window. And it will add these labels. You'll see it doesn't include all of them, and they're really long. And it's not exactly clear which dots they line up with in some cases. So that's helpful, but it's not solving our problem. I'm going to instead take this and drag it to detail. That's my dog, Julep. Okay, so I dragged it to detail, place to detail, and you can see those labels went away. But now when I hover, I see latitude, longitude, place, and magnitude. So I think that's a pretty big improvement. Julep, be quiet, Mister. I'm not sure what he's barking at. Probably not this map. Okay, so let's say we wanted to just focus on the United States. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to click this Show Me button. That's where we can see our little shortcuts for a map. You might have that still visible. If you click the word Show Me, it will disappear, and it will show you your scale for the data that we dragged over. Let's see. So what I wanted to say is, let's say we just wanted to focus on America, or the Americas, or something like that. How can we change this map and its appearance? Well, first of all, if you hover in the upper left-hand corner of the map, you'll see you've got pluses and minuses, so that's pretty helpful. We know how to use plus and minus. So I'm going to hit plus, and then I'm going to go down to this arrow, and hovering over it, I haven't clicked anything. I'm going to click on this pan tool and scoot over to America. Now I'm just going to do this roughly, but let's say I just wanted to focus on America. I'm going to hover over this arrow again and choose the selection tool, third one in. It's the dotted rectangle. And let me draw a box around America. Again, I'm not going to be super exact. And before this contextual menu disappears, I'm going to slide down to Keep Only and click that. So what I've done is gotten rid of all of our other points. We're just in America now. You can see that we still got our information here when we hover, so that's pretty useful. I'm going to change tools again to pan. So now we can, you'll notice also we've, the appearance is a little different. We have to change the opacity again. It's got a border now. That's okay. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further. And you can see, there's a cluster here in California, there's a cluster here in Oklahoma, but there's no other data on this map. It would be nice if we could show, for instance, some demographic information here, which we can. That's why I'm leading you into this. I'm going to go up to this map menu up top, map, and then map layers. So when you choose map and map layers, all this stuff's going to show up on the left-hand side, and some of it's really useful. So for instance, terrain, we could turn on, coastline. I'll change the appearance slightly. I like that coastline. We can go up to style at the top and change this to a normal map, as opposed to light, which is the default. There's a dark map, which is a bit visually confusing. There's even satellite, outdoors. So I'll leave mine on outdoors, kind of like that. You'll also notice that at the bottom of this map layers menu is the data layer option. And if we click on that, all this interesting United States related data shows up. So for instance, we could choose population. It's going to color code our states to show the varying populations and add a legend for it. Let's zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to go down to our arrow, rectangular selection tool. I'm going to zoom in on Oklahoma. It's this big blob of earthquakes right here. And do keep only. Okay, so those are only points. Let me zoom in on the map, switch to the pan tool, and get this in the center, zoom in one more time. We've been practicing this in Google Maps for years now. All right, that's pretty good. So I'm going to go up to color and let's see. Well, our opacity is actually about where we want. Oh, there we go. I just had something activated. I just clicked in this gray area down here and it seems to turn that off. I think I had that exclude contextual menu open. So now we're getting pretty good results. Oklahoma is just, the only label in it is the name of the state. That's not very useful. So I'm going to go over here and turn on cities. And that's much more useful. And we can see that in relation to population. But population is still just showing the population of Oklahoma. As you see, it's by state. So I'm going to change that. We've got a bunch of different options here. Definitely our most exacting measurement is going to be by census tract, which is for where, if you were wondering, most of these data layers are coming from. That's why they're focused on the United States. Okay, that's great. That color scheme is a bit challenging with the earthquake data that we have. So I'm going to click on magnitude, color, and maybe change this to red. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, so now we get a sense of what the population is in relation to some of these centers where there have been a lot of earthquakes. You can see most of them are happening in more rural areas. I'm not seeing anything conclusive, certainly. But remember, we have other things we could look at. So let me change it from population to, we could look at the median household income. We're still looking at this by census tract, but you'll see the blocks of color. They change their appearance here. It's much more general measurement. So you'll see this whole area is the same color of pale green, which indicates its median household income is right in the middle or so. And again, I'm not really seeing much of a correlation, but if we saw one, it would be kind of interesting. We could say something about it. Well, let's pretend we did. Let's pretend we discovered that all the earthquakes were happening in low-income areas or something like that. If we wanted to share this image so other people can see it, this would not be the best way to do this, but it will work in a pinch. I'm up on the worksheet drop down, and you'll see, let's see, 3 options down is export. I'm going to export image. So you see you just got some pretty basic options here of what to include, what not to include. I'm just going to hit save. Let's see what we get here. All right, so I'm going to save it to the desktop. You see we'll get one more option for its file type. PNG would almost certainly be the best for this. BMP files are not what we want to use. JPEGs are best for photos. Okay, I'm going to rename this, if I can spell Oklahoma. Oklahoma map 1, how about? Alright, so if we take a look at what we just saw, there it is. Let me double click this. It should open in preview. I only wanted to open this up to make it clear to everybody. Thank you, Julep. Anyways, my TA had some things he wanted to chip in there, but I wanted to make it clear that this is not an interactive map as it was in Tableau. To export an interactive map, well, we can't just save it as an image, obviously. Things get a little bit more complicated coming from Tableau if we want interactive maps. It involves servers and data sources and gets somewhat advanced. To be clear, for your projects, you can just export still maps and that would be fine. As long as you have legend and can explain what's going on. All right, let me close that up. So I encourage everybody to, again, play around with these different options that I showed you. The map drop down and map layers is pretty interesting. playing around with this marks area is also fun. Some things we have coming up that I'll show you in our next video. We're gonna, we basically filtered out content. We just kind of did it through the map, so we probably won't go through that too much. We can add different backgrounds to our maps if we wanted. A lot of other stuff. There's different options for sharing as well. So I think the most important thing right now, in addition to following along with these video tutorials, would be following along with content from other sources. I've already linked to a bunch from our Moodle site, and you know, just with the limitations we have of face-to-face contact, I think the more y'all hear different people going over the same content virtually, the better it'll stick in your head. Practice is really important here, and since this is not coding, you shouldn't have that intimidation factor. You can't do anything wrong in Tableau. You're not working on your project, right? You're just playing around. So I encourage you to play around in Tableau. Let's see. The only other thing I can think of that would be really important is to start thinking about what you would want your project to be on. So I want to remind everyone there's a number of open data portals. So you can basically type in any city and open data. If it's a big city, they'll have a data portal. Specifically, what I want to point out is you know, you would want a map in case that's not clear. So if we go to a category here, like in City of Chicago, oftentimes you'll have options here, such as here's maps. It's a type of data here. And so that's going to limit the data that they're showing us to just be stuff that has map-based data. I also want to remind everyone we can work with multiple formats of map information or geospatial information. The one we talked about in the last video was GeoJSON. I also briefly mentioned latitude and longitude, which is what we just used in that Oklahoma example. Those work if we just have the name of states. We can do choropleth maps based on state and that sort of thing. What we cannot work with is just street addresses or some of this crime data. Maybe not this one, but it just has information on blocks. Actually, it might be this data, which is useful and interesting, but we can't bring it into Tableau and make a map. So latitude and longitude, GeoJSON, those are our best options. So if you're going through one of these open data portals, that's the kind of thing that you'd want to find. So for instance, if I went to police stations here, whoa, all right, and did export. Let's see, this is a CSV. So if I open this up in Excel, what I would want to check for is there a column with latitude and longitude? So this has an address column. We probably can't do anything with that, unfortunately. And then here's the location. This looks like a latitude and longitude pair. This might be difficult to work with in Tableau because it doesn't have a latitude and a longitude column. So if you were good in Excel, you could clean this up and then import it. I think that's another thing we're going to go over in our next lesson, is how to work with messier data in relation to Tableau. All right, I'll see you then.